Hi you guys, so I'm going to talk to you about the 3 things that you want to think of if you're thinking about starting a new yoga practice. I get this question asked a lot of new students where they say, what style of yoga practice would work best for me? But it's also a great question to ask if you have been practicing for a long time. It's a great way to take a peek at, to kind of step back and see where your practice is going and see, is it stagnant? Am I growing? Should I add some change or variation to my practice? So these are my top 3 things that you should look at when you're considering that. So the first thing you want to look at is set and setting, is the space you're practicing in and the instructor, the teacher. When you find a place to practice in, try not to limit yourself. I've found some of the coolest teachers in the diviest, weird community centers and places that you wouldn't even think of that you could practice yoga in. And they've just got heart and soul, and they're just there for the sake of sharing their practice with others and getting others to grow. So you don't have to walk into a yoga studio or a certain place. Be open-minded about where you practice, because the most important thing about where you practice is, do I feel welcome? Do I feel like there's a space there that I feel comfortable to explore myself and my practice? Because the practice of yoga, you're exploring the most intimate, deepest connections. That mind-body awareness, that connection to spirit, that connection to growth, that connection to becoming your own master. And you can't do that in a dojo or in a studio or in a place that you don't feel comfortable in your own skin and in that place. And the other component to that is, you're really going to that yoga studio. Yoga is a practice that's completely individualistic. It is your practice. It's nobody else's practice. You're just going to that studio because you might want some guidance from an instructor, but you could stay home and do it online. And you want to be around that energy, around other like-minded people who are practicing and on that same path and on that same journey. So if you don't get that from the place, the vibe, when you walk into that place, stop and just close your eyes, or just kind of take a few deep breaths and say, how do I feel when I enter this studio or this dojo or this gym or this community center or this place that I'm going to practice yoga in? It is about set and setting with that. Which brings me to the second point of that, which is same thing with your instructor. A good instructor, personally, I don't care, you see, I went to the 200-hour, 500-hour, 1,000 billion hours of YTT training and I don't really care what your credentials are. I want to know, as an instructor, do you grow? Do you make it a goal in your own personal life to have constant growth in your own practice? A good way to gauge this is, if you've been practicing, you go week after week, year after year, month after month, day after day to the same instructor, and are you hearing the same things over and over from that instructor? Or does that instructor teach you new things each week and inspire you to grow in new places, or look through the practice of breath or asanas or body from a different lens or a different angle? Are they constantly challenging themselves to growth? And if so, then they're going to be a good one to help challenge you to grow as well. And so you want to find an instructor who is on that path and on that journey with themselves. And also the second component to that is, do you feel comfortable with that person? Does that teacher set and hold a space for you to feel comfortable to explore in yourself? That instructor should really hold the space and set the energy and space for that entire room, for that entire class, and for each student to feel able to rise up to whatever their practice is bringing them today. Because your yoga practice changes, your breath changes, your life experiences changes, the way you moved from today to yesterday, the stress you encountered from yesterday to today, everything about your life changes. And the practice of yoga is being on that mat and knowing that something's going to rise up today. Can I be present and conscious and aware enough to see what's rising up and to see what benefits I can get out of it and what things and lessons I can learn from that? And so a teacher should hold a space for you to feel comfortable in. And also, you should feel comfortable to ask that teacher questions. You should want to come to the front of the room and be brave enough and bold enough to ask questions and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling in this pose, or can you give me a modification for this, or I'm interested in this area. I want to work on my breath-body connection more, or I want to work on meditation more. And that space and that teacher and that practice should encourage you to explore and grow as well. So if you don't feel comfortable there, that's another indication and a sign that maybe you should look elsewhere and try a different style or a different practice or a different teacher. There are thousands of them out there, thousands of little hole-in-the-wall studios and teachers that you can learn from. And that's the other thing I encourage you to do, is to explore different styles and kinds of yoga and to find the ones that you like. I cross yoga train or CrossFit train with yoga. I don't know if that's a term, but I practice many different styles of yoga with many different teachers. And it depends on what kind of mood I'm in for the day and what I've gone through for the day. So don't limit your practice there. So tip number 1.